The Galactic Union had waited centuries to initiate contact with Earth, expecting a meticulously coordinated response. Instead, their landing pod descended into what Earth locals called Florida. To their confusion, the first being to approach wasn't a president, a scientist, or even a soldier, it was Chad. Shirtless, sunburned, holding a plastic flamingo floaty under one arm and a six-pack of something labeled Florida Man Lager in the other, he rode a jet ski across the water, waving at the stunned alien delegation like they were tourists. "You're the space bros," he shouted over the engine. "Welcome to Earth, baby." The delegation leader, a tall, crystalline being named Awil Tar, activated his translator. "Is this the human delegate?" No one else was present. Chad was confident, loud, and clearly unbothered by their presence. The assumption was made, this creature was clearly in charge. Chad climbed aboard their hovering platform, cracked open a can of beer, and offered it like a ceremonial gift. "First contact toast, am I right?" The Union had protocols for this. They scanned the beverage for toxins. While the analysis began, Chad chugged the beer in front of them, crushed the can on his forehead, and let out a triumphant WOO. That was interpreted as some kind of greeting howl. The sensors buzzed. Trace amounts of ethanol, carbonation, and artificial citrus. Awil Tar took a cautious sniff. The aroma alone began to affect his neural chemistry. Curious and increasingly influenced by the ambient absurdity, he sipped it. Seconds later, he dropped his ceremonial robe. Gasps rippled through the delegation. Chad laughed. "Whoa. Space streaker." Another alien, horrified, whispered, "Sir, you are Neked." Awil Tar swayed slightly, pupils dilated. "No. I am free." The rest of the delegation scrambled to redress their leader, but it was too late. The moment had been captured by their onboard drones and transmitted live across Galactic Net. Billions of beings across hundreds of worlds witnessed their highest-ranking diplomat intoxicated, undressed, and shouting something about feeling the rhythm of Earth. Back on the platform, Chad started playing music from his waterproof speaker. It was loud, obnoxious, and full of bass. Awil Tar began swaying to the beat. Another alien muttered, "We've been compromised." The humans hadn't fired a weapon. They hadn't even sent a proper representative. But already, the foundation of diplomatic interaction was eroding under the weight of a single Floridian and his uncanny ability to bypass cultural defenses with beer, bass, and brazen self-confidence. Chad tossed another can toward the nearest alien and shouted, "Let's get weird, space dude." The alien caught it, looked at the fizzing liquid, and hesitating, took a sip. And smiled. Across the Galactic Union, analysts and bureaucrats were already scrambling to understand how a first-contact protocol centuries in the making had just been obliterated in 15 minutes by a man whose primary form of communication was yelling over loud music. Back on the platform, Awil Tar screamed joyfully into the sky. Chad high-fived him. The stars had never seen anything like this. News of the incident spread through the Galactic Union in minutes. The robe dropping, the alcohol, the shouting, every second of it streamed and dissected by thousands of alien analysts. The event was officially classified as a Tier 3 diplomatic breakdown. Emergency protocols were activated. Earth was flagged as a potential cultural contamination zone. Back on Earth, Chad remained blissfully unaware. He was now barbecuing in a trailer park with the alien delegation. They had followed him there willingly. Awil Tar, still shirtless, was now wearing an American flag bandana and trying to flip burgers with his bare crystal claws. Another diplomat was floating upside down in a kiddie pool filled with neon green soda. Chad introduced them to the concept of cookout diplomacy, which involved beer pong, grilled shrimp, and loud music. To the aliens, the combination of fire-cooked meat and rhythmic chanting felt primitive but oddly spiritual. One even described it as a sensory awakening. The Union's High Council watched in horror as their carefully trained diplomats devolved into what they called behavioral entropy. Awil Tar, once a symbol of interstellar order, was filmed doing a cannonball into a pool while screaming, "This planet is chaos." Efforts to establish formal communication with the Earth governments failed. The delegation had gone entirely off script. Their personal comms were disabled, replaced by human cell phones loaded with social media apps. Several aliens were now live-streaming their experiences under usernames like Galactic Bro69 and Space BBQ Queen. Meanwhile, subtle scans by the Union's orbiting fleet revealed something more alarming. The diplomats' neural patterns were shifting. Their synapses were firing in irregular, emotional patterns typical of human brains under prolonged exposure to irrational stimuli. Analysts debated whether this was a viral mimetic infection or simply psychological collapse. Either way, the term Chad syndrome was coined. One alien was seen with a poorly inked tattoo that read Earth life in backward English. Another began speaking in heavily accented Earth slang, referring to fellow diplomats as dude and brosef. When asked about diplomatic integrity, Awel responded, "I've never felt more alive." A meeting was held in orbit. A junior analyst asked, "Is it possible the humans planned this?" The room went silent. They lured us in with informality, destabilized us with kindness, and then converted us with grilled meat. A general snapped, "You think this is warfare?" The analyst nodded. "Cultural warfare. They didn't attack us. They made us want to be them." Orders were sent to retrieve the diplomats before they lost any more of their core identity. A task force was assembled. Stealth gear. Non-lethal containment protocols. They had to move quickly before the infection spread to higher-ranking systems. Back on Earth, Chad handed a sparkler to a newly liberated alien who giggled at the tiny explosions of light. Another one was teaching herself to line dance. A simple mission of peace had become a complete unraveling of galactic order, and at the center of it all was one man with no shirt, no plan, and apparently, no idea what kind of domino effect he had started. The retrieval team landed quietly, expecting resistance. What they didn't expect was to walk straight into a Walmart parking lot filled with aliens in flip-flops and tank tops, pushing carts loaded with soda, fireworks, and inflatable pool toys. Their diplomatic robes were gone. They blended in so well that the retrieval team struggled to identify them. Chad greeted them with a thumbs up and a loud, "You boys here for the party?" Before they could respond, he shoved a hot dog into one of their hands. "First one's free. Earth rule." The leader of the team, Commander Vesk, attempted to assert authority. "We are here to extract the diplomatic personnel." "Not before the contest," Chad interrupted. "Florida hot dog challenge. Settle it like real Earthlings." The retrieval team, bound by observation protocols, reluctantly agreed. 4 hot dogs in, their digestive systems began to falter. 10 minutes later, one was lying flat on the pavement, begging for mercy. Chad stood victorious, arms raised, as the alien crowd chanted his name. After the contest, the team attempted containment. Their tranquilizer darts didn't work, partly because the diplomats ran, and partly because 2 had duct-taped beer cans to their bodies as armor. A brief scuffle ensued near the outdoor garden section, but it ended when someone turned on the karaoke machine. Awel stepped up, grabbed the microphone, and belted out a passionate rendition of Free Bird. Midway through the solo, he fell to his knees, overwhelmed by emotion. "I was never allowed to sing," he whispered into the mic. "Now I can't stop." The retrieval team froze. One of them lowered his weapon. "They're not compromised. They're happy." More aliens joined in. A duet began. Vesk ordered a full retreat. "We've lost operational control," he reported. "The infection is deeper than we feared." Meanwhile, Chad passed out glow sticks and neon tank tops. He declared it Galactic Freedom Friday, despite it being Wednesday. The aliens didn't care. They danced, sang, and declared their loyalty to Planet Chill. The Union's emergency command center descended into chaos. Their attempt to retrieve the delegation had only added more defectors. One analyst summed it up in a single line: "The humans weaponized fun." Back on Earth, the defected diplomats were now organizing a road trip across the southern states. They wanted to see more authentic culture. Chad handed them a map with locations circled: Daytona Beach, Talladega, and a monster truck rally. There was no resistance, no threats, no grand strategy. Just relentless friendliness, absolute chaos, and a refusal to play by any known rules. The retrieval mission failed not because Earth resisted, but because Earth never treated it as anything but an invitation to party. As the last shuttle departed, empty and defeated, one retrieval officer removed his helmet, looked back at the celebration, and sighed. "We came for order. We found something louder." The spread was no longer containable. The Chad effect had gone viral. The Galactic Council convened in crisis mode. Every effort to regain control had failed. Their finest diplomats were off-grid, now cult-like followers of something called the Way of Chad. Surveillance footage showed them wearing backward caps, eating gas station snacks, and calling each other bro. The Council demanded Earth send an official representative to answer for the cultural contamination. They got Chad. He arrived in flip-flops, wearing aviators and a tank top that read "No regrets, just ribs." Security tried to stop him. He offered them beef jerky and said, "Relax, I brought vibes." The chamber fell silent as Chad strolled to the center. No speeches, no paperwork. He cracked open a soda, took a sip, and said, "You'll need to chill." Murmurs rippled through the delegates. Chad continued, "Look, I don't know what kind of weird space homework you'll been doing, but life ain't about rules and robes. Sometimes you just got a cannonball into the unknown. Why, feel me?" One elder delegate, known for his rigidness, suddenly broke down. "He's right. I haven't danced in 200 years. Another screamed, "We've wasted centuries on protocols. I want fireworks." Within minutes, chaos spread. Delegates tossed robes aside. A spontaneous chant began, "Chad, Chad, Chad." The council chamber transformed into a bizarre celebration of freedom, with centuries-old representatives doing the worm across marble floors. The vote was unanimous. Earth would be granted conditional union membership as a cultural anomaly zone, exempt from protocol, studied but not contained. It was the only way to protect the rest of the galaxy from Earth, and from itself. Chad was appointed Earth's ambassador, largely because no one could tell him no. He accepted with a simple, "Let's ride," and handed out custom tank tops with Galactic Bro printed in 5 alien languages. Back home, he returned to the swamp with his new entourage aliens wearing American flag shorts, sipping sweet tea, and blasting classic rock. They called it the Brotherhood of the Backyard. Across the galaxy, strange things began happening. A planet known for silence started hosting loud music festivals. Another abolished its 3,000-year dress code. Somewhere, a high priest traded his staff for a skateboard. What began as a diplomatic catastrophe ended in cultural revolution. No weapons fired. No treaties signed in blood. Just good times, questionable fashion, and an unshakable belief that life was meant to be lived loud, weird, and barefoot. In Union records, the event is officially titled the Chad Accord. Unofficially, it's known as the day the galaxy got a little wilder. And as one alien philosopher later wrote, "We looked into the chaos of humanity and found something terrifying, beautiful, and undeniably fun. We found Chad. And Chad. He just popped open another beer and whispered, 'Told y'all. Earth rocks.'"